In the 6th century BC, on the Greek island of Samos, the famed mathematician Pythagoras led a school of thought that married philosophy, mathematics, music, and of course geometry. And while Pythagoras did not discover advanced geometry, he did apply it in new ways, especially to music. For instance, he noticed that when a tauten string was plucked, it would create a tone. And when that string was divided in half, it would make the same tone, only twice as high in pitch. Pythagoras then came up with numerical ratios based on harmonic fifths, and this led to the creation of the musical scale found at the root of most modern music. It is important to note that according to Pythagoras, all musical notes were found by using mathematics, and as such were given number values according to their placement in a kind of master grid. For instance, by using fifths beginning from note number 1, he was eventually guided to note 27. And to find the same note twice as high in pitch, he simply kept doubling it to 54, 108, 216, 432, and so on up the scale. If you've ever heard of Pythagorean tuning, you know that the number 432 is quite important. To Pythagoras himself, it probably wouldn't have stood out more than any other in his numerical grid. But in our quest to find a universal language based on mathematics and frequency, this particular note represents a significant piece of coincidental evidence. You see, many ancient musical instruments, from Tibetan bowls to Native American flutes, happen to produce the same tone, a tone that vibrates at 432 cycles per second. That's compelling, but even more intriguing is the fact that Pythagoras was not calculating vibration cycles to find tone 432. It just happens to be the same number. What's more, for decades, most modern musical instruments were also tuned to this same fourth octave A, with a value of 432 cycles. How could this be? Who chose this particular note as the keystone for instrument tuning, and more importantly, why? Here is where a deeper mystery begins to emerge, and to explore it, we will need to go back to Pythagoras' other passion, geometry. It is not an exaggeration to say that to Pythagoras and his disciples, geometry and math held a key to the nature of all life everywhere, and maybe it does. Let's look at the first 4 geometric shapes, the circle, triangle, square, and pentagon. In each of them are angles of degrees that, when added together, always total a specific number relative to that particular shape. For instance, if we take a triangle, the sum total of all 3 interior angles is always 180. For both the square and circle, it is 360. For a pentagon, it is 540. Now at this moment, let's step back and look at these numbers in a different way, as there seems to be something about them that reaches beyond a simple sum of angles. Did you notice that they happen to be in the same numerical neighborhood as tone 432? What's more, they all add up to 9, just like 432. As an experiment, let's take a look at the numbers found in basic geometric shapes, then apply those numbers as vibration cycles to hear the tones they produce. First, let's listen to what the 180 total degrees contained in a triangle sound like. And here's a squares and circles 360 in cycles per second. A perfect octave up from the triangle. What about the pentagon at 540? That sounds like a harmonic fifth of the other two. That's interesting. What are these tones? They are F sharp and its perfect harmonic fifth of C sharp. Let's keep going. What does a hexagon 720 sound like? Another F sharp. Here's a 7-sided septagon, which totals 900. This is an A sharp, which happens to be the note required to complete an F sharp major chord in perfect 3-part harmony. And finally the octagon, where we get 1080, another C sharp. Suddenly, geometry is expressed by tones, and these tones just happen to create the most beautiful form of music, a perfect 3-part major chord in the key of F sharp. Another F sharp. Here's a 7-sided septagon, which totals 900. This is an A sharp, which happens to be the note required to complete an F sharp major chord in perfect 3-part harmony. And finally the octagon, where we get 1080, another C sharp. Suddenly, geometry is expressed by tones, and these tones just happen to create the most beautiful form of music, a perfect 3-part major chord in the key of F sharp. Is this something we've been missing for years? Is it important? To the famous philosopher and mathematician Plato, the answer would have been a resounding yes, for it is Plato who advanced the study of 2-dimensional geometry into 3-dimensional geometry, and who began to recognize that nature, whether expressed as a tone, the petal design of a flower, or the spiraling design of a seashell, seemed to follow a 3D mathematical pattern. In fact, it became an obsession of Plato to try and find the simplest 3-dimensional geometric shapes, and his quest ultimately revealed what we now call Platonic solids. In essence, these forms represent the most elemental construction blocks found both in human-made and natural forms. So let's see if and how they fit into our geometry tone grid. First, there is the tetrahedron, or a 3-sided pyramid comprised of 4 interlocking triangles. As we did before, let's add up all the angles found in those 4 triangles. The answer, 720, which we have already seen is the tone F sharp. Next, we have the cube, whose 6 360-degree squares totals 2160. What does it sound like? .2160 is a high C sharp, and as you will see later, a very interesting number for other reasons as well. Next up is the octahedron. Constructed of 8 triangles, this shape totals 1440, which is another perfect F sharp higher up the scale. The icosahedron is made up of 20 triangles, so the total number of degrees is 3600. As a tone, 3600 vibration cycles create the A sharp needed to complete yet another F sharp major chord that sounds like this.
Wow.
At this point, we have seen how 2- and 3-dimensional geometry can be expressed by
See that?
found in an F sharp.
Did you see that?
Could this also be true number for other reasons as well? Next up is the octahedron. Constructed of 8 triangles, this shape
Star of David.
1440, which is another perfect F sharp higher up the scale. The icosahedron is made up of 20 triangles, so the total number of degrees is 3600. As a tone, 3600 vibration cycles create the
3600
to complete yet another F sharp.
Watch this though.
That sounds like this. At this point, we have seen
black
how
hole
2- and 3-dimensional
sphere
geometry can be expressed by the notes found in an F sharp major.
You see that?
Could this also be true with what is known as sacred geometry? To find
Wow.
out, we will first need to build a
I swear I did not watch this before I made that video yesterday.
It goes on to reveal the seed of life, then flower pattern found at sacred sites.
Wow.
First, we start with a circle at 360 degrees, which is the familiar.
I'm not kidding, people.
We then add our second circle, bringing the total to 720.
Comes the Olympic rings, watch.
3 circles totals 1080, which provides the harmonic fifth of C sharp.
It's 5
4
circles.
circles is 1440, another F sharp.
6.
5 circles totals 1800,
7.
or the A sharp needed to once again provide the harmonic third of an
7.
F sharp major chord.
Again.
And finally the 6th circle, which
Oh,
brings
6.
the total
I
to
thought it was 7.
160, another C sharp. Amazing. It's as if we can now both see and hear the flower of life pattern that has intrigued humankind for thousands of years. So now we have
Did you see what it looked like? It looked like an atom or a nucleus.
And even sacred geometry being represented
right
by
there, all the balls.
Of an F-sharp major.
Forget the middle.
How is this not common knowledge? How have we missed this connection? There are actually three explanations. One, for reasons ranging from the mundane to the conspiratorial, musical instruments are no longer tuned to an A vibrating at 432 cycles per second, but rather 440. Two, modern tuning calls for equal temperament, which no longer adheres to Pythagoras' whole number simplicity. And three, the tuning method required to reveal geometric shapes is based on a mathematical grid rather than mathematical ratios. This grid, if it had a name, would probably be called something like factor 9, because the number 9 is found not only in the sum of every note on the grid, but also as the number required to move up or down the scale. For instance, if we started at note A at 216 cycles, all we would have to do is add or subtract the number 9 to reveal all the other tones in that octave. And it is here, on this incredible factor 9 grid, that we find not just some of our geometric numbers, but all of them. Conversely, modern A440 tuning reveals not
see the pinnacles of the 3600?
Now let's go back for a moment and take a look.
Do you see that? 2160 is the zodiac.
The number expressed by both the cube and the germ of life pattern. You may have already noticed that without the 0, it is exactly half of our magic 432. That's worth noting. But what is even more intriguing is the way this number keeps showing up in other large-scale measurements. To discover one of these measurements, we will need to jump forward from Plato's time to when the Mayan civilization was flourishing. Roughly 1,500 years ago, Mayan stargazers were the most accomplished astronomers the world had ever known. Their concept of cyclical time led to many incredible discoveries: the accurate length of a year, the exact dates of seasonal changes, even the moments when solar and lunar eclipses would occur. But their most amazing discovery was of something known as the precession of the equinox, which makes note of a very slow wobble of Earth's axis. Somehow aware of the fact that this wobble takes 25,920 years to complete, the Mayans called this cycle one great year, with each of its 12 great months requiring 2160 Earth years to complete. And what about this? Did you know that the diameter of our moon, when measured in miles, also happens to total? You guessed it, 2160. Lastly, watch what happens when we apply simple division to this highly synchronous number. 2160 divided by 2 is 1080, the angle sum of the octagon. By 3, 720. By 4, 540, the pentagon. By 5,
see you guys?
It's the ketone of 432.
Another
By
piece.
6, 360, the number of both the
black hole,
circle. All F sharps and C sharps
sphere
are 432 as if it were some kind of clue to solve the cosmic riddle.
You know,
maybe we should look at this number.
I'm so giddy right now because of...
As we've stated, our closest celestial neighbor, the moon, is 2160 miles across, and 216 is exactly half of 432. What about the other large object in our sky?
Watch this.
Were you aware that our sun
I was aware of this.
64,000 miles across? Incredibly, where the moon's base number sequence is half of 432, the sun's number sequence is exactly twice 432.
That's why you get a full lunar or solar eclipse.
86,400, or 43,200 for the 12 hours of day, and 43,200 for the 12 hours of night. Well, try this. Take the 360 degrees found in the circular shape of our sun and moon, and then multiply it by the 12 hours of either day or night. The answer, 4320. Or how about this? What is the only whole number that when squared comes to within 0.01% accuracy to measuring the speed of light? 432. What is going on here? We have all these different things.
Telling you, it's the projector.
Time and celestial measurements, geometry,
trapezium open star cluster.
They are all represented by the same numbers over and over again. To answer that, we must search for the factor common to all of them, and that common factor is the 5,000-year-old Sumerian 1260 counting system. It is what gave us the inches to a foot, the seconds to a minute, and the 360 degrees in geometry. It's almost as if the sky god visitors, who the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, provided humanity with a counting system that would lead to the discovery of these synchronicities. Could it be that the number 432 really is some kind of cosmic key that unlocks the language of our understanding? And if so, have these sky visitors ever been back to make sure we don't miss the importance of the 432 matrix? One possible answer can be found in the story of a man named George Van Tassel, a respected aeronautical engineer who believed he was contacted by extraterrestrial beings in the early 1950s. During this encounter, Van Tassel said he was provided with a mathematical formula that could be used for everything from time travel to sound frequency healing, and which he used to build the world-famous Integratron near Joshua Tree, California. What is this formula? It is F equals 1 over T, or frequency equals one particular something divided by the number of time. Well, what if that one something was the biggest one on our planet, the one great year of 25,920 discovered by the Mayans? And what if the number for time was the most logical choice of 60? Suddenly, this mysterious equation is expressed as frequency equals 25,920 divided by 60. Are you ready for the answer? It's 432. Not only the frequency that instruments all of the world have been tuned to for thousands of years, but also the number that reveals the synchronistic nature of life on this planet. Noticing all these coincidences revealed by the 432 matrix and the Sumerian counting system, we must wonder if other ancient cultures were aware of them as well.
M42, folks.
Seem that they were. For example, let's take the Sumerian 12 and square it for a total of 144. Right off, we see that it is indeed a number and tone contained within our factor 9 grid. Expanding outward, we find 1440, then 144,000, which is a number that appears all over the world in the most compelling of ways. Take, for instance, the Great Pyramid of Giza. It happens to have been covered with 144,000 smooth white casing stones.
And the number 144,000 or 44 is how you derive the size of a black hole at the center of a planet, because every planet has a black hole. That's where the hollow earth thing came from. That's what Admiral Byrd was talking about when he said that you could travel from the South Pole to the North Pole without ever leaving the earth. And that's it, folks. I mean, it's game, set, match. Right here in this picture, you're looking at a pyramid, the Great Pyramid, whatever. It's a tetrahedron because it's an 8-sided pyramid. But look, do you see it? Me, I see an eye in the right where you would see the eye on the triangle, like on the dollar bill. I see it. The eye of providence, the eye that never sleeps, the eye that never slumbers. For God gave his only begotten Son, for he who shall believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. The gnosis, the knowledge of this, is the wisdom that we seek. The synchronicities are just far, far too numerous for this not to be true. It's true, folks. Trapezium Open Star Cluster is our projector, and this is more proof of it.
To ancient Mayans, 144,000 days was the length of their 394-year back tomb, a time cycle which has just begun again. In the Bible, we read that there will be 144,000 chosen ones redeemed from the earth prior to the apocalypse. Obviously, number sequences like these have been significant to many different cultures and religious sects, and to one enigmatic group in particular, the Freemasons.
By the way, my number reflected in my email my whole life has been 333. I've seen that number on several occasions, on numerous times per occasion, that prompted me to pay attention to my surroundings. And I've made decisions based on that I don't know if I would have made other decisions, but they were pinnacle moments that steered me from trouble, from harm, from no good. So there's something to this.
The earliest Masons, the supposed keepers of sacred information, also aware of the Factor 9 grid, the 432 key, and the number 144,000, their infatuation with the numbers 3 and 13 might be telling. For instance, if you divide 144,000 by 432, the answer is 333.3 and 2 infinity. Or take a look at the back of a dollar bill. That famous unfinished pyramid could be revealing some interesting clues. For instance, there are 13 steps climbing the pyramid, and 13 times 33.3 is 432.9. Even the shape of the flat-topped pyramid appears to be made as if someone had drawn 4 dots in a line, then 3 above it, then 2 above that, and then connected those dots to reveal this iconic shape. And of course, let's not forget that the square root of our all-important Factor 9 grid is 3 threes. Who else knew about 432? The answer is surprising. In India, large cycles of time are called Kali Yugas, and each one is 432,000 years long. In fact, the number 432 appears so often in sacred structures and myths, from Stonehenge to the pyramids, that author Joseph Campbell could not help but see it as the most important mythological number in history. So what do we have here? What is it that's trying to be expressed by all of these coincidences? One answer is that over the course of history, we have been somehow guided toward both the subconscious creation and eventual conscious recognition of a grand pattern based on frequency, mathematics, time, space, and geometry. Quite possibly, these synchronistic numbers, shapes, and tones represent the building blocks of a language that we do not yet fully understand, but could turn out to be the most important language we will ever learn. How will we use it? Who will we be conversing with? Time will tell. Thousands of years ago, from locations all over the globe, various prophets, shamans, and seers described an era when humanity would make some kind of cosmic leap into a next level of consciousness. Here, at the dawning of the age of Aquarius and the start of a new Mayan Baktun cycle, maybe it's happening.
Every age is 2160, by the way. Of the zodiac. Bravo, sonic geometry. Well, people, I've had a day of discovery, and you know what? I didn't watch that video until just now, and I'm being completely honest with you there. I have seen some of that information before, and I have meditated on it, but right there pounded it home for me about the synchronistic reality matrix that we're in. I mean, over and over, this will happen if you open your mind and open your heart. It is no coincidence that we have energy inside us that can be read on an EKG machine, which is another electrical device that picks up, electricity. So if we weren't energy, then you wouldn't be able to detect energy on us. So therefore, we are planets revolving around our central sun. We are the atom. You do that, guys. It sounds corny. You may think I'm crazy. Do it. If you read, or if you listen to, read or listen to my last video, The Spaceborne, it's just crazy how, I mean, last night when I decided to do that, I picked up my emerald tablets like I always do. You know, the emerald tablets of Thoth. You know, Thoth was Hermes, Trismegistus, amongst others. I believe he was Jesus, maybe even Tesla, Poseidon maybe, Enki. Melchizedek, or whatever his name was. All kinds of reincarnated beings on our slate of existence. See, our 3D reality is that accretion disk, the plane of inertia, the equilibrium of the Anu. The Anunnaki are from heaven. They were the 7 lords of Amenti. They were the sun gods that came and gave information to humanity. Probably jump-started our civilization. Maybe out of guilt. Or not out of guilt, but out of necessity to keep our species alive. And if enough of us don't wake up at this moment in time, our species may be headed for that point again. This is the prophecy that's been told over and over from different cultures, different epochs. I mean, it's come from the left, the right, from in front, from behind. I mean, it's come at us from every single freaking angle. Would you just look at it? At the risk of sounding like someone we all know. But folks, regardless of what is going on, live in the now. Seek the knowledge, for the knowledge will bring you closer to the Christos. For we are the Rishi in the process of knowing. Love, peace, chicken grease. Ponder on that which I have laid out for you. M42, Orion Nebula, Trapezium Open Star Cluster. The synchronicities and all that stuff, just right there alone, is just mind-boggling. The Trapezium Open Star Cluster, the wordplay, trapezium, you know, think about it. The black hole sun, the only begotten sun, Adam Cadman. That was what Jesus embodied when he was here on earth. Was that the only begotten son? The one that came after. God of God. Son of a son. Just like you and me. Mighty spirit of light that flows through that shines through the cosmos, draw my flame closer in harmony to thee. Lift up my fire from out of the darkness. Draw my flame closer in harmony to thee. Lift up my fire from out of the darkness, magnet of fire that is one with thee all. Lift up my soul, thou mighty and potent. Child of the light, turn not away. Draw me in power to melt in thy furnace. One with all things and all things in one. Fire of the life strain and one with the brain. Mighty spirit of light that flows, that shines through the cosmos. Draw my flame closer in harmony to thee. Lift up my fire from out of the darkness, magnet of fire that is one with thee all. Lift up my soul, thou mighty and potent. Child of the light, turn not away. Draw me in power to melt in thy furnace. One with all things and all things in one. Fire of the life strain and one with the brain. Much love, people.